We will tackle illegal migration. We've been working on policies. I say no to putting people in hotels. Tents are good enough for France. They should be good enough for here in Britain.
Well, if that's your logic, France is in the European Union, so will Andrea Jenkyns be advocating for that? Andrea Jenkyns was back on GB News after being made Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, trying to justify her comments about people being put in tents, refugees specifically, in order to essentially put them off coming over. But once again, you heard the same old arguments that were destroyed by Zoe Gardner when she met Andrew Gullis. So I'm going to play the clip of Andrea Jenkyns having a fight with someone on GB News, dissect it, and then we'll go into detail about what Zoe Gardner had to say in response to stupid comments like Andrea Jenkyns has just made.
Will the good people of Greater Lincolnshire want 10 refugee camps in their backyards?
No, I'm not talking. I'm talking about as they come across, as they have it in France.
So down in Dover?
Well, yeah, I do that as a temporary situation. Why would the
good people of Dover want tents and refugee camps on their doorsteps?
Also, I mean, reform's correct that we must come out of the ECHR so we can start pushing people back.
That would also mean that you'd have to renegotiate the Good Friday Agreement. Of course, they never talk about that. And when she says she has to push them back, it's not really that different to what the Daily Mail was suggesting in the 1930s with German Jews.
I mean, what I really don't understand is that we've given millions, and even when I was Conservative MP, I challenged the government on this, giving millions to France. They leave a safe country to come to another safe country.
I totally agree with you on that.
With France.
When she says stuff like that, all it reminds me of is people saying that vaccines are bad, it's that crazy, or that the earth is flat. She doesn't seem to understand what has been going on in the rest of the world, or the part that Britain's had to play in blowing up a large chunk of it over the last couple of decades.
I totally agree with you on that, but in what world will the people of Dover advocate refugee-style camps like we see in the third world with tents erected in their backyards? They just won't want that.
Well, it's got to be a contained area. It's got to be a contained area to then we've got to send them back to France.
She's so mad. I mean, Lincoln, well done for voting in a completely insane person. So her plan is to force the French to take more refugees, and they already take more than the UK. And she's going to force them how? Taking a boat into French territorial waters with warships? She's absolutely crazy. And yet she wants to pull us out of the ECHR as well. You know, along with Belarus and Russia. Putin must be watching this and thinking, well done, KGB, well done. We have outdone ourselves. We've actually got British people voting lunatics into positions of power.
We've got to start sending, my whole point is we've got to send them back to France, Camilla. They shouldn't be coming over in the first place from a safe...
Is your tent idea your idea, or has it been endorsed by the party? Because Reform sort of distanced themselves from this.
Yeah, no, it's my idea. Of course it is, yeah. No, Camilla, I've always been a politician who speaks my mind and puts my views forward. That's what I'll always continue to do.
Interestingly, Zia Youssef, the chair of Reform, didn't quite say that.
New mayor in Greater Lincolnshire, Dame Andrea Jenkyns, said asylum seekers should go in tents. Is that now the party policy?
That's what France does. Do you think that's unreasonable?
Is that now the party policy?
Do you think that's a reason why? Do you think that's a reason why people come across the English Channel? They risk their lives coming across the English Channel to come to the UK because we're a soft touch, Laura.
That's the type of answer you'd expect from someone who has zero empathy for anyone else in a problem. You know, like Hannibal Lecter. Because deep down, what they really want the refugees to live in is some sort of situation like this, like they do in France, where it's absolute squalor and children are playing in it and there's no latrines. Because they've got it into their heads that if they make people live like this, they won't want to come to the UK. But they also think that they're economic migrants. Have a listen to what this gentleman said was put in front of him as a choice.
And like most of us are made to join the army. That means you will be given a gun and then to go and shoot your fellow countrymen.
Yeah.
That's why most of us ran away and they don't want to join the army and kill each other.
Here's what Zoe Gardner had to say.
All of us just need to start being a little bit more realistic. You listen to the likes of Andrea Jenkyns. She says horrible, dehumanizing and despicable things like the fact that we should leave homeless people on the streets in tents. And you want to believe the fairy tale that this time this is the thing that's tough enough, that's cruel enough, that's harsh enough. It'll make them all disappear. They'll go somewhere else. Don't care where. Somewhere else, another country will deal with them. It's nonsense. It's dangerous. It's destroying the soul of this country. And anybody who is halfway decent would indeed have walked out, will stand up and speak up at this stage in our politics, because we are echoing an extremely dark and dangerous part of history.
And yet they don't see it. They'll come up with complete and utter twaddle of excuses that we can't afford it, that we need to look after our own. But when you really dig down into their policies and what they're actually advocating elsewhere, they don't really seem to like women, they don't really seem to like people who are foreign, they don't really like people who are disabled, they don't really like women, they don't like trans. What you need to think about is when they're talking about migrants, the working class migrants, not the rich ones, what they're really saying is that's how they'd like to treat you and everyone else if they thought they could get away with it. Because as long as people continue voting idiots like that in, people who are borderline racist, if not completely racist, we're in the first three lines of first they came for.
First they came for the refugees, and I said nothing, because I wasn't a refugee. Then they came for the Muslims, and I said nothing, because I wasn't a Muslim. Then they came for the journalists, and I said nothing, because I wasn't a journalist. Then they came for the climate activists, and I said nothing, because I wasn't a climate activist. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me.
And what Zoe pointed out so poignantly is their appetite never ends. They always want more.
The only reason I'm asking is because having reported from there quite extensively myself, I can say that one of the things that local French people hate most about that is seeing people in tents, so much so that the French police confiscate their tents. So it would seem a bit of a curious policy to try and emulate.
Well, no, I mean, look, it happens in other countries and also, but we've got to get to my whole countries. Look, my whole point of making this statement is that we are soft touch Britain, and you know, we're acting like honey, bees to honey, by putting people in hotels, by, you know, they get the accommodation, they get their food paid. I mean, look, some Conservative-led councils have even paid for driving lessons. This is taxpayers' money, and it should actually be tents, not rent. It should actually be... and British people are charitable, Lewis, but they're struggling themselves now.
The audacity. They were the party that went for Brexit, and so did Andrea Jenkyns. It took 4% of our GDP. It cost us $40 billion in tax every single year. And then the party that she was with in the past led almost 2 decades worth of austerity, which has hammered the UK economy. Only made worse by their same party she was in electing a lettuce.
Energy costs are at an all-time high. Mortgage rates, I mean, my mortgage went up £800 a month when the fixed rate finished. So I know what it's like to struggle as a single parent. And so people are struggling. So why?
It's almost mind-bending in the fact that she's complaining about the very things she voted for and backed and was part of, and at the same time doesn't realise that she's essentially attacking herself. It's mind-bending. Lincolnshire, I have no clue what you're doing electing someone like that.
Should the British people be putting people in hotels out of their own pocket
so
when
you'd be happy
they
to
work
see,
so
you'd be
hard?
happy, you'd be content, as the Mayor of Greater Lincolnshire, you can have a role in this. If there are roads with people in with tents, you're content with that?
It's got to be a confined area. I mean, I have to say, this isn't a reform policy.
If there were children, should they be in tents?
The fact is, we've got to stop the pull to Britain with this. And why are we paying these millions and millions of pounds to France when people come from a safe country such as France to come here? We should be sending them back to France.
So if there were children in Lincolnshire, unaccompanied migrants, and they were in tents on the roadside,
well, how are they going
your
to get
message
here
is
in
okay.
the first place? You know,
I know, but once they are here, if they're in a tent, that's okay with you.
What percentage is actually children? Look, the majority of them is actually but the majority is economic migrants, Lewis. They've got the mobile phones. It's usually young men who come across, and We've got to stop this.
So let's rewind just for a couple of seconds.
People come from a safe country such as France to come here.
So their argument is about safe countries. They consider France a safe country, so you shouldn't move anywhere once you're in France. Have a listen to this from Zoe Gardner.
Which is, if these people in Calais are legitimate refugees, why are they not claiming asylum in France, Italy, Spain or Greece? Why do they need to come to the United Kingdom?
As I'm sure you'll be aware, because I think the previous witness did say this, the vast majority of people who seek asylum worldwide, firstly, 86% of refugees and displaced people worldwide remain in the country neighbouring the one they have fled. So 86% of people remain in developing countries. France received 3 times as many asylum applications as we did last year. Most people stop as soon as they feel safe. But the people who are making their way to England and who specifically wish to come to the UK do so because they have ties to this country, because they either have served with our military, as in the case of people from Afghanistan, or have family members, as with the Syrian client that I mentioned that JCWI is representing, or speak the language because of our colonial history and have other ties of kinship and history here. So there are people who have legitimate ties to the UK, and there is no good reason why they should particularly have their claims assessed in France if they do not wish to. It doesn't really work for us to say to the French that, given that we're geographically located slightly to the west of you, none of these refugees are our responsibility and they're all on you, because France can say the same thing, and then Italy can say the same thing, and then the entire international refugee protection system will crumble.
And this is the whole point. Everyone's got to take responsibility. And the thing is, these people that are making these racist comments, like Andrea Jenkyns, are essentially parroting what was being said in the 1930s about the Jewish immigrants and refugees that were coming to Britain. People didn't want them here. And that caused us to pass legislation in the UN, the Refugee Convention, to protect refugees. And what the right have done is they've turned around and changed the word refugee to illegal migrant. And they can't differentiate between the word refugee and illegal migrant. And this is why you will never hear them say the word refugee in their rhetoric. It's always illegal, as if there is some sort of law that says you can't move countries. Part of the reason for them going across those boats is because there are no entry points into the UK in embassies across the world or in Europe. You've got to come that route to be able to get refugee status. And part of that is being caused by the fact we've got colonial ties, as Zoe said, but also a lot of it's been caused by all the wars that Britain's been involved in across the Middle East and in other parts of the world. But will you ever hear them reference that? Of course not, because it doesn't suit their model. It doesn't suit their narrative. Because the British public, if they were openly racist, wouldn't tolerate it. But if they're just on the border, they can get away with quite a lot. So what I really want to know from you is, who would you rather spend time with? Hannibal Lecter or Andrea Jenkyns? Leave your thoughts in the comments. If you got this far in the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel, so do comments. Once more, I want to say a big thank you to all of my Patreon YouTube subscribers. You really help this channel. Without you, it would definitely be a struggle. Once again, thanks for listening. Bye for now.